Victor Bucky didn't sleep that night. He sat in his study, the paper Lina had given him spread across his mahogany desk, creased, smudged, covered in dense engineering mathematics that made his head spin. At first, it looked like nonsense. Symbols he didn't recognize. Equations that belonged in a physics journal, not in the pocket of a homeless girl. But Victor hadn't built a billion-dollar aviation empire by dismissing what he didn't understand. He leaned closer, squinting at the faded pencil marks. The calculations were elegant. Precise. The kind of work that came from someone who didn't just understand flight systems, they understood them at a molecular level. Whoever had written this wasn't copying textbook formulas. They were creating new ones. His finger traced a series of pressure coefficients. Then he saw it. In the bottom right corner, in handwriting so small he'd almost missed it. They're still watching. Victor's blood went cold. He looked up sharply at his study windows. The floor-to-ceiling glass panels that he'd always loved for their view of the city skyline suddenly felt like surveillance screens. Anyone with binoculars could see him right now. Anyone with a telephoto lens could photograph what was on his desk. He stood abruptly, walked to the windows, and pulled the curtains closed with more force than necessary. His phone buzzed. His assistant. His lawyer. His pilot asking if the jet was ready for tomorrow's flight to Singapore. He ignored them all. Because something Lina had said kept echoing in his mind, someone made sure I did. Made sure she disappeared. Victor had spent 30 years in the aviation industry. He knew how corporations operated. He knew about non-disclosure agreements, intellectual property theft, industrial espionage. He'd signed enough contracts and buried enough competitors to understand the game. But this? Destroying a brilliant engineer's life to steal her work. Making her homeless? His jaw tightened. He thought about his own daughter, Claire, studying engineering at Stanford. What if someone had done this to her? What if she'd designed something revolutionary, only to have it stolen, only to be erased? The thought made him sick. Victor grabbed his coat. 20 minutes later, his black Mercedes S-Class pulled up to the chain-link fence where he'd first seen Lina. The airstrip was dark now, bathed in the cold blue glow of security lights that cast long, distorted shadows across the tarmac. His jet sat in the distance, silent, perfect, ready to fly anywhere in the world. Except Victor wasn't thinking about flying anymore. He was thinking about a girl who'd fixed a machine she'd helped design, then vanished back into the night like a ghost. He stepped out of the car, dress shoes crunching on gravel. The wind was sharp tonight, carrying the smell of jet fuel and rain. Lina, he called into the darkness. His voice echoed across the empty airstrip and died in the wind. Nothing. He walked closer to the fence, gripping the cold metal links. I know you're here, he said louder, his breath misting in the cold air. I read the blueprint. I need answers. About the software. About what they did to you. About who's watching. Silence. Only the wind rattling the chain-link fence and the distant hum of highway traffic beyond the perimeter. Victor was about to call out again when he heard it. A soft sound. Metal scraping concrete. He turned sharply. From behind a rusted cargo container near the terminal building, a shadow moved. Then she stepped into the dim light. Lina emerged slowly, still barefoot despite the cold pavement, still wearing that torn hoodie that hung off her thin frame like she'd borrowed it from someone 3 sizes larger. But her eyes were different now. No longer the desperate, uncertain eyes of the girl who'd stood at this fence yesterday. These eyes were sharp. Calculating. Guarded. Like she'd been expecting him. Or worse, hoping he wouldn't come. "You shouldn't have come back," she said quietly. Victor took a step toward the fence. "Why not?" Lina glanced over her shoulder, a quick, nervous movement, like someone might be listening from the shadows. "Because now they know you're involved," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Who's they?" Victor demanded. She looked at him for a long moment, as if weighing whether he could handle the truth. Then she spoke. "The people who made sure I disappeared." Victor felt his chest tighten. "Lina, I need you to explain. Yesterday you fixed my jet in 5 minutes. You knew exactly what was wrong with software that's supposed to be classified. You said you designed it." He pulled the crumpled blueprint from his pocket and held it up to the fence. "This, whatever this is, it's not random math. Someone brilliant wrote this. Someone who understands adaptive flight systems at a level that shouldn't be possible for a homeless girl." Lina interrupted, her voice sharp with bitterness. "That's not what I meant. It's what everyone means." She stepped closer to the fence, and in the harsh security lighting, Victor could see how thin she'd become. How exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes. Dirt under her fingernails. "You want to know who wrote that code? Who designed the software running in your $80 million jet?" "Yes. Me." Her voice was steady now, defiant. "I wrote every line. Every algorithm. Every fail-safe and backup protocol. When I was 17 years old." Victor stared at her. "That's impossible," he said slowly. "The engineer who wrote that code was a man named Dr. Lina Rhodes. He worked for Arosam Industries for 15 years. I've met him at aviation conferences. He's presented papers on." "He presented my papers," Lina said, her voice breaking now. "My research. My designs. My life's work." Victor's mind was reeling. "Who is Dr. Lina Rhodes to you?" Lina's jaw tightened, and for a moment, Victor thought she might cry. Instead, she lifted her chin and met his eyes directly. "Dr. Lina Rhodes," she said slowly, each word measured and deliberate, "was my father." The world seemed to stop. Victor felt like he'd been punched in the chest. "Your father? He didn't write that code," Lina continued, her voice shaking with barely controlled emotion. "I did. I designed the adaptive AI flight system when I was 17. I was homeschooled. My father taught me advanced mathematics and engineering from the time I could read. He said I had a gift. That I saw patterns other people couldn't see." She paused, her hands gripping the fence so tightly her knuckles went white. "But I was just a kid. No credentials. No degree. No one in the industry would take me seriously." Her voice dropped. "So my father made a deal with me. He would present my work as his own. Get it published. Get it implemented. And when the time was right, when I turned 18, when I had a degree, when I had legitimacy, he would tell the truth. Give me credit. Give me the recognition I deserved." Victor's throat felt tight. "What happened?" Lina's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "The software worked too well. Arosam Industries didn't just want flight optimization. They realized what I'd actually created, a self-learning AI that could adapt to any system. Military drones. Power grids. Weapon systems. Financial networks." She looked away, staring at the dark runway beyond the fence. They wanted to weaponize it. Sell it to defense contractors. Foreign governments. Anyone with enough money. Her voice hardened. My father found out. He tried to stop them. Told them he wouldn't allow his work to be used that way. And Victor's voice was barely a whisper. Lina turned back to him, and the look in her eyes made his blood run cold. They offered him $10 million to stay quiet. Victor exhaled slowly. He refused. He refused, Lina whispered. And 3 days later, his car went off a bridge on Highway 17. The police called it an accident. Said he must have fallen asleep at the wheel. Victor felt his chest constrict. You think they killed him? I know they did. The certainty in her voice was chilling. Lina reached into her pocket, that same torn hoodie pocket that seemed to hold more secrets than it should, and pulled out something small. A flash drive. Black. Ordinary. No bigger than Victor's thumb. But the way she held it, carefully, reverently, like it was made of glass, told him it was anything but ordinary. This, she said, holding it up between them, contains everything. Every email. Every meeting transcript. Every threat Arosam made to silence my father. Every buyer they contacted. Every transaction they made. Victor stared at the tiny piece of plastic. Proof, Lina said quietly. Of murder. Of theft. Of conspiracy. Of treason. Victor's hands trembled as he reached through the fence. But Lina pulled the drive back, just out of reach. You don't understand what you're asking for, she said, her voice urgent now. This isn't just corporate espionage. This isn't just stolen intellectual property. What's on this drive? She shook her head. If you take this, you become a target. Just like my father. Just like me. Victor's hand hung in the air between them, frozen. I don't care, he said. Lina blinked. What? I said I don't care. Victor's voice was steady now, resolute. If they come after me, let them come. Your father tried to do the right thing, and they murdered him for it. You've been living on the streets for, how long? 6 months, Lina whispered. 6 months. Victor felt rage building in his chest. While the people who killed your father sit in boardrooms and collect paychecks. He reached through the fence again, palm open. Give me the drive. But Lina was already shaking her head, backing away. You don't understand. They have resources you can't imagine. Private security. Lawyers. Politicians. They've already erased me once, made me legally invisible. My bank account's frozen. My credentials deleted. My identity stripped away like I never existed. Then how are you still alive? Victor demanded. Lina's expression darkened. Because I know too much. If I die mysteriously, if I disappear completely, the dead man's switch activates. Victor's eyes narrowed. What switch? I set up a protocol. If I don't check in every 72 hours using a specific encryption key, everything on this drive automatically uploads to every major news network, law enforcement agency, and congressional oversight committee in the country. Victor felt a chill run down his spine. This girl wasn't just smart. She was strategic. Paranoid. Prepared. So they can't kill you, Victor said slowly, understanding dawning. But they can make your life hell. Exactly. Lina's voice cracked. They're waiting. Hoping I'll give up. Hoping I'll make a mistake. Hoping the exposure and starvation and cold will break me before I can expose them. She looked at Victor with those sharp, haunted eyes. And honestly, some days I think they're right. The wind howled across the airstrip, and Victor watched this brilliant, broken girl shiver in her inadequate hoodie. He made a decision. "Come with me," he said. Lina laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Where?" "To your mansion. Your corporate headquarters. Everywhere I go leaves a trail. Cameras. Credit cards. Security logs. They'll know within an hour. Not if we're careful." Victor pulled out his phone. "I have a penthouse in the city. Top floor. Private elevator. No security cameras in the residential areas. I insisted on it when I bought the building. You can shower. Eat. Sleep in an actual bed. And then what?" Lina challenged. "Hide forever." "No." Victor met her gaze. "Then we figure out how to destroy them." For a long moment, Lina just stared at him. Like she was trying to decide if he was insane or the first person in 6 months who'd actually offered her hope. Finally, she spoke. "Why?" Her voice was small now, vulnerable. "Why would you risk everything for someone you don't even know?" Victor thought about Claire. About his daughter studying engineering, building her own dreams. "Because someone should have helped you a long time ago," he said quietly. "And no one did." Lina's eyes filled with tears. She looked down at the flash drive in her hand, then back up at Victor. Then she did something that surprised them both. She walked to the fence, reached through the cold metal links, and pressed the drive into Victor's palm. "If something happens to me," she whispered, "promise you'll finish this." Victor closed his fingers around the drive. "Nothing's going to happen to you. Promise me." The desperation in her voice made Victor's chest ache. "I promise." Lina nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "There's a gap in the fence," she said, pointing down the perimeter. 200 yards south. Where the contractors never finished welding the seam. "Meet me at my car," Victor said. 5 minutes. Lina disappeared back into the shadows before Victor could say another word. He stood there for a moment, the flash drive heavy in his pocket, wondering what he'd just committed himself to. Then he turned and walked back to his Mercedes. For minutes later, Lina emerged from the darkness like a ghost materializing from mist. She moved differently now, cautious, scanning the parking lot, checking every shadow. Survival instincts honed by months of living on the edge. Victor unlocked the passenger door. Lina hesitated, her hand on the handle. "Last chance to walk away," she said. Victor started the engine. "Get in." She did. The leather seat seemed to swallow her thin frame. The heated seat activated automatically, and Lina flinched at the sudden warmth, like she'd forgotten what comfort felt like. Victor pulled out of the parking lot, heading toward the highway. Neither of them spoke for the first few miles. Lina kept glancing at the side mirror, watching the road behind them. Checking for headlights that followed too closely. Cars that took the same exits. "No one's following us," Victor said gently. "You don't know that. I've been checking too." Lina looked at him with surprise, then something like respect. "How long have you been in aviation?" she asked. 32 years. Started as a mechanic. Worked my way up. You built your company from nothing?" From less than nothing. I was in debt up to my eyeballs until I was 40. Victor smiled slightly. But I had something most people didn't. What? I understood that the people at the top aren't always the smartest ones in the room. They're just the ones willing to take the biggest risks. Lina was quiet for a moment. My father used to say something similar, she said softly. He said genius without courage is just math on paper. Victor glanced at her. He sounds like he was a good man. He was. Lina's voice broke. He was everything. They drove in silence after that, the city lights growing brighter as they approached downtown. Victor's mind was racing. He was thinking about the flash drive in his pocket. About the evidence it contained. About the target he'd just painted on his own back. But mostly he was thinking about the girl sitting next to him, barefoot, brilliant, and broken. And the promise he'd made. 20 minutes later, Victor pulled into an underground garage beneath a sleek glass tower. He used a keycard to access the private parking level, then another to call the residential elevator. Fingerprint and facial recognition only from here, he explained as they stepped inside. No one else can access the penthouse floor. Lina nodded, but her hands were shaking. The elevator rose silently, floor numbers ticking upward, 10, 20, 30. When the doors opened directly into Victor's penthouse, Lina's breath caught. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, a sea of light stretching to the horizon. Modern furniture. Marble floors. Art on the walls that probably cost more than most people made in a year. Guest room is down that hall, Victor said, pointing. Bathrooms stocked with everything you need. There's clothes in the closet, my daughter leaves things here when she visits. Help yourself. Lina stood frozen in the doorway. What's wrong? Victor asked. She looked around, overwhelmed. I haven't been inside a building like this in 6 months. Victor felt his throat tighten. Take your time, he said gently. I'll order food. What do you want? Anything, Lina whispered. Everything. Victor smiled sadly. Give me 20 minutes. Lina walked slowly through the penthouse, touching surfaces like she couldn't quite believe they were real. The marble countertop. The soft couch. The warm light from designer lamps. She stopped at the windows, staring out at the city below. They're down there, she said quietly. Right now. Watching. Waiting. Victor joined her at the window. Then let them wait, he said. Tomorrow, we start fighting back. Lina turned to look at him, and for the first time since he'd met her, she smiled. It was small. Fragile. But real. Thank you, she whispered. Victor nodded. Go shower. I'll handle dinner. As Lina disappeared down the hallway, Victor pulled out his phone and the flash drive. He had calls to make. People to contact. But first, he needed to see what was on this drive. He sat at his desk, inserted the flash drive into his laptop, and entered the password Lina had whispered to him in the elevator. The screen filled with files. Hundreds of them. Emails. Audio recordings. Financial transactions. Meeting transcripts. Security footage. Victor's hands trembled as he opened the first file. It was an email from Dr. Lina Rhodes to Arosam Industries CEO, dated 8 months ago. I will not allow my daughter's work to be weaponized. This technology was designed to save lives, not end them. Consider this my formal resignation and notice that I will be contacting federal authorities regarding your illegal activities. The response came 2 hours later. Dr. Rhodes, we urge you to reconsider. Your daughter's future depends on your cooperation. Accidents happen. We would hate to see another talented young engineer's life cut short. Victor felt sick. They'd threatened Lina directly. Threatened her father. And 3 days later, Dr. Rhodes was dead. Victor scrolled through more files. Bank transfers to offshore accounts. Communications with foreign military contractors. Plans to sell Lina's adaptive AI to hostile nations. This wasn't just corporate espionage. This was treason. And the people involved weren't just Arosam executives. There were names Victor recognized. Politicians. Military officials. Lobbyists. People with the power to make problems disappear. People who could make people disappear. Victor sat back in his chair, his mind reeling. Lina was right. This was bigger than he'd imagined. And more dangerous. His phone buzzed. A text from his pilot. Mr. Bucky, is everything okay? You cancelled tomorrow's Singapore trip without explanation. Is there a problem? Victor stared at the message. Tomorrow, he was supposed to be flying to Singapore for a deal worth $40 million. Instead, he was harboring a fugitive and holding evidence of international conspiracy. He typed back. Family emergency. I'll reschedule. Then he turned off his phone completely. From down the hallway, he heard the shower running. Heard Lina's quiet, muffled sobs mixing with the sound of water. Victor closed the laptop and walked to the kitchen to order enough food for someone who hadn't eaten a real meal in months. And as he did, he thought about his daughter Claire. About the call he'd need to make. About the danger he might be bringing to her doorstep. But he also thought about Dr. Aloy Rhodes. About a father who tried to protect his daughter's legacy and paid with his life. About a 17-year-old genius whose work had been stolen, whose identity had been erased, whose future had been ripped away. Victor made another decision. He wasn't going to let them win. The food arrived 40 minutes later. Victor had ordered from 3 different restaurants, Italian, Thai, Japanese. Enough variety that Lina could choose whatever her body might actually accept after months of malnutrition. She emerged from the guest room wearing Claire's old Stanford sweatshirt and sweatpants, both too big for her skeletal frame. Her hair was clean now, dark and wet, hanging past her shoulders. Without the grime and exhaustion, Victor could see what she must have looked like before, young, brilliant, full of potential. Now she just looked haunted. I set everything out on the counter, Victor said, gesturing to the kitchen. Eat slowly. Your stomach probably can't handle much at once. Lina nodded, approaching the food like it might disappear if she moved too quickly. She started with soup, miso, simple, warm. Her hands shook as she lifted the spoon. Victor pretended not to notice, busying himself with his own plate. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Then Lina spoke. You looked at the drive. It wasn't a question. Victor set down his fork. I did. And you're right about everything. Victor met her eyes. Arosam Industries isn't just guilty of IP theft. They're selling military-grade AI to foreign governments. Nations on the State Department's watch list. Countries with active human rights violations. Lina's jaw tightened. I told you. The emails between your father and their CEO, Victor shook his head. Lina, this is enough to bring down the entire company. Maybe even trigger congressional investigations. If anyone believes us, Lina said bitterly. If anyone cares. They will. We'll make them care. How? Lina set down her soup, frustration flooding her voice. I've tried. For 6 months, I've tried everything. I sent anonymous tips to journalists, ignored. I contacted FBI field offices, told to file official reports, which I can't do because my identity's been erased. I even tried posting excerpts online, and within hours, everything was scrubbed. Every post deleted. Every account suspended. She stood abruptly, pacing. They control the narrative, Victor. They have lawyers who can bury evidence for decades. PR firms that spin stories. Algorithms that suppress information they don't want seen. Then we go bigger, Victor said calmly. Lina stopped pacing. What do you mean? Victor pulled out his phone, not his usual phone, but a burner he'd purchased on the way home. Untraceable. I know people, he said. Real investigative journalists. Not the kind who bow to corporate pressure. People who've built careers on exposing corruption. Like who? Sarah Chen. She broke the Pentagon Papers scandal 3 years ago. Nearly went to prison for it, but she got the story out. Lina's eyes widened. The Sarah Chen. From ProPublica. We were friends in college. Before she became famous. Before I became rich. Victor smiled slightly. She owes me a favor. A big one. What kind of favor? The kind where I paid her legal fees when the government tried to bankrupt her family. Lina sat back down slowly. You think she'd run this story? I think she'd kill for this story. Victor leaned forward. But we need to be smart. We can't just hand her the drive and hope for the best. Arosam will come after her too. We need protection. Legal protection. Political protection. From who? Victor's expression hardened. From people who have more to lose than we do if this goes public. He pulled up a contact on his burner phone. Showed it to Lina. Senator Rebecca Morrison. Lina's breath caught. The chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee? She's been investigating defense contractor corruption for 2 years. Keeps hitting dead ends because companies like Arosam have too much power, too many connections. Victor's eyes gleamed. But what if someone handed her irrefutable evidence? Evidence that couldn't be buried or explained away. She'd have to act, Lina whispered. She'd have to act, Victor confirmed. For the first time in months, Lina felt something stirring in her chest. Hope. Dangerous, fragile hope. When do we contact them? She asked. Tomorrow. But first, Victor stood, walking to his desk. He returned with a leather folder. We need to get your identity back. Lina blinked. How? I have lawyers. Good ones. The kind who can cut through bureaucratic red tape and make things happen. He opened the folder, revealing blank forms. We're going to reconstruct your paper trail. Birth certificate. Social security. Bank accounts. Everything Arosam erased. That'll take months. Not if we pay enough. Victor's smile was cold. Money has a way of speeding up legal processes. Lina stared at the forms, emotion flooding her face. Why are you doing this? She asked again, her voice breaking. You don't even know me. Victor thought about his daughter. About the countless times he'd told Claire that talent and hard work would be enough to succeed. But Lina had talent. She'd worked harder than anyone Victor had ever met. And the system had crushed her anyway. Because someone should have protected you, he said quietly. And they didn't. So I will. Lina's eyes filled with tears. She reached across the table and gripped Victor's hand, her fingers thin and cold but her grip fierce. Thank you, she whispered. Victor squeezed back. We're going to make them pay for what they did. To you. To your father. To everyone they've hurt. Lina nodded, wiping her eyes. They spent the next 2 hours going through the drive together, organizing files, building a timeline. Victor took notes. Lina explained the technical details, how her adaptive AI worked, why it was so dangerous in the wrong hands, what Arosam had done to militarize her peaceful technology. Around midnight, Victor's burner phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We know where she is. Victor's blood went cold. He showed the message to Lina. Her face went pale. How? I don't know. Victor's mind raced. I used a burner. We weren't followed. The building security is. Another text appeared. Did you really think we wouldn't notice Victor Bucky suddenly canceling business trips? Acting erratically. One of the richest men in aviation suddenly going dark. Lina stood abruptly, backing toward the window. We have to leave. Now. But Victor was already thinking 3 steps ahead. No, he said firmly. What? Lina's voice rose in panic. If we run, we look guilty. Scared. Victor's expression hardened. And they'll just hunt us down eventually. Then what do we do? Victor stood, walking to his desk. He pulled out a small device, a recording pen. We record everything, he said. Every threat. Every attempt at intimidation. Every time they reveal their hand. He typed back. Who is this? The response came immediately. You know who we are, Mr. Bucky. And you know what's good for you. The girl has something that belongs to us. Return it, and we'll forget this ever happened. You can go back to your jets and your billions. She can go back to, wherever she was. Victor's jaw clenched. He showed the message to Lina, who looked like she might be sick. They're threatening you, she whispered. Because of me. Good, Victor said coldly. Lina stared at him. What? This message? This explicit threat? Victor held up the phone. It's evidence. They just admitted to monitoring me. To tracking your location. To conspiring against us. He took a photo of the screen with a separate camera. Then he replied. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm having a quiet evening at home. Alone. The response was instant. Don't play games, Mr. Bucky. We have resources you can't imagine. Accidents happen. To jets. To daughters studying at Stanford. To homeless girls no one will miss. Lina gasped. Victor's hands shook with rage. They just threatened Claire. His daughter. Every instinct screamed at him to call campus security, to hire bodyguards, to put Claire on the first plane home. But that's what they wanted. Panic. Fear. Mistakes. Instead, Victor took another photo. Then he typed. Touch my daughter, and I'll make sure every news organization in the country knows about your illegal arms deals. I'll bankrupt your company. I'll expose every board member. I'll spend every dollar I have destroying you." A long pause. Then. "You're making a mistake." Victor replied. "No. You made the mistake when you killed Dr. Lina Rhodes. And now you're going to pay for it." He turned off the burner phone and removed the SIM card, snapping it in half. Lina was trembling. "You just declared war." "They declared war 6 months ago," Victor said. "When they stole your work. When they murdered your father. When they erased your existence." He pulled out his regular phone and made a call. It rang twice. "Victor? It's midnight." "What's?" "Sarah, I need you to listen very carefully," Victor said. "I have a story for you. The biggest story of your career. But I need you to move fast. Tonight." There was a pause on the other end. Then Sarah Chen's voice, "Alert now, I'm listening. I have evidence of defense contractor treason. Illegal weapons sales. Murder. Conspiracy. All documented. All verifiable. Jesus. Who's involved? Arosam Industries. And it goes higher. Much higher." Another pause. "Victor, are you in danger right now?" "Probably." "Where are you?" "My penthouse." "But Sarah, they're monitoring communications. You can't come here directly. We need to be smart about this." "Okay. Okay." He could hear Sarah thinking. "There's a coffee shop 3 blocks from your building. Closes at midnight, but the owner owes me a favor. I can have it open back up. Meet me there in 1 hour. Come through the back entrance. I'm not alone. Bring them." "But Victor," her voice turned serious. "If this is real, if it's as big as you say, you need to understand something. Once we break this story, there's no going back. Your life changes. Forever. I know. Are you sure you want to do this?" Victor looked at Lina, this broken, brilliant girl who'd lost everything. "I'm sure. 1 hour. Back entrance. Don't be followed." The line went dead. Victor turned to Lina. "Get dressed," he said. "Warm clothes. We're leaving in 30 minutes. Where are we going?" "To start a war." 28 minutes later, Victor and Lina stood in the penthouse elevator, descending. Victor had made 3 more calls, one to his head of security, one to his lawyer, and one to Claire at Stanford, telling her to stay in her dorm, lock the door, and wait for the security team he was sending. Claire had asked questions. Victor had promised to explain later. Now they were moving. Lina wore layers, Claire's clothes, plus a jacket Victor had found, and finally a pair of sneakers that were slightly too big but better than nothing. She looked more human now. Less like a ghost. But her eyes still carried that hunted look. "We're not taking your car," she said as the elevator descended. "No," Victor agreed. "They'll be watching for it." "Then how?" The elevator stopped on the 3rd floor. Not the ground level. Not the parking garage. The doors opened. A woman in her 60s stood waiting. Silver hair, sharp eyes, expensive coat. "Victor," she said warmly. "What's this I hear about you needing my car?" "Mrs. Patterson," Victor said with genuine affection. "Thank you for this." "Nonsense. After you got my grandson into MIT? I'd lend you my firstborn. She handed Victor a set of keys. It's the gray Honda. Level 2 of the visitor parking. Nothing fancy, but it'll blend in. Perfect. Mrs. Patterson's eyes shifted to Lina. And who's this? A friend, Victor said carefully. She's in some trouble. Mrs. Patterson studied Lina for a long moment. Then she smiled, the kind of smile that said she'd lived through enough to recognize when not to ask questions. You look cold, dear, she said, unwrapping her own scarf and handing it to Lina. Take this. Lina accepted it with trembling hands. Thank you. Be safe, both of you. Mrs. Patterson stepped into the elevator. And Victor? Whatever trouble you're in, give them hell. The elevator doors closed. Victor led Lina down a service stairwell, through the building's maintenance corridors, emerging finally in the visitor parking section where Mrs. Patterson's old Honda Civic sat waiting. It was perfect. Unremarkable. Invisible. They climbed in. Victor drove carefully, taking side streets, doubling back twice to check for tails. Lina watched the mirrors obsessively, her body tense as a bowstring. I don't see anyone, she said finally. Neither do I. That doesn't mean they're not there. I know. They drove in tense silence. The city at night was different from the daytime bustle. Quieter. Darker. More dangerous. Victor thought about the texts on his burner phone. The explicit threats. The casual mention of accidents. These weren't empty warnings. Arosam Industries had killed before. They'd kill again. But so would Victor. Not with violence. With truth. 15 minutes later, they pulled into an alley behind a closed coffee shop. The sign above read, Mateo's Coffee House, in faded letters. A single light burned in the back window. This is it, Victor said. They got out. The back door opened before they could knock. Sarah Chin stood there, early 40s, Asian American, wearing jeans and a Georgetown sweatshirt. Her black hair was pulled into a messy bun. No makeup. Wire-rimmed glasses. A laptop bag slung over her shoulder. She looked like a graduate student. She'd brought down cabinet officials. Victor, she said, then her eyes shifted to Lina. And you must be the source. Lina Rhodes, Lina said quietly. Sarah's eyes widened. Rhodes? As in Dr. Aloy Rhodes? My father. Jesus. Sarah stepped back, ushering them inside quickly. Get in. Now. The coffee shop was dark except for one booth in the back where Sarah had set up a command center, laptop, recording equipment, legal pads covered in notes. An older man sat at the booth. Late 60s. Distinguished. Silver hair and kind eyes. This is Thomas Whitaker, Sarah said. Civil rights attorney. One of the best. He's here to make sure everything we do is legally bulletproof. Thomas stood, shaking hands. Mr. Bucky. Ms. Rhodes. Sarah's filled me in on the basics. But I need to hear it from you directly. They sat. And Lina began to speak. She told them everything. About designing the adaptive AI at 17. About her father presenting her work. About Arosam's betrayal. About the weaponization plans. About her father's murder disguised as an accident. About 6 months of living on the streets, invisible, hunted. Sarah recorded every word. Thomas took notes. Victor added details. Showed them the flash drive. The texts from earlier tonight. When Lina finished, the coffee shop was silent. Sarah sat back, her expression unreadable. Then she leaned forward. "This is bigger than Watergate," she said quietly. "Can you run it?" Victor asked. "Can I run it?" Sarah laughed, a sharp, hungry sound. "Victor, this story will win a Pulitzer. It'll destroy Arosam Industries. It'll probably trigger a congressional investigation and criminal prosecutions." "Good." But, Sarah's expression sobered. "You need to understand what you're asking. Once I publish this, you become public enemies. Arosam will use every resource they have to discredit you. They'll dig up every mistake you've ever made. Every business deal that went south. Every tax return. Every relationship. They'll try to paint you as disgruntled, unstable, vindictive." "Let them try," Victor said coldly. Sarah looked at Lina. "And you, Ms. Rhodes? They'll say you're mentally ill. That you fabricated evidence. That you're seeking attention or revenge. The scrutiny will be brutal." Lina's jaw set. "They already took everything from me. What more can they do?" Thomas spoke up. "They can make your life unlivable." "But," he held up a hand. "Sarah and I have been through this before. We know how to protect sources. How to verify evidence. How to build an airtight case." "How long will it take?" Victor asked. "To verify everything. To get corroboration. To build legal protection." Sarah calculated. 72 hours. "Maybe less if we work around the clock." "We don't have 72 hours, Lina said urgently. "They know Victor's helping me. They'll move faster now. Destroy evidence. Threaten witnesses. Maybe even." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Sarah exchanged a glance with Thomas. "Then we move faster," Sarah said. "We verify the most damning evidence first. The emails between Dr. Rhodes and Arosam's CEO. The financial transactions. The military contracts. I can have a team of researchers working by dawn," Thomas added. "We'll cross-reference everything. Build a timeline that's legally defensible." "And in the meantime?" Victor asked. "In the meantime, you disappear." Sarah pulled out 2 burner phones. "Both of you. No social media. No credit cards. No phone calls to anyone except these numbers. Thomas will arrange a safe house." "A safe house?" Lina's voice was small. "Somewhere they can't find you. Somewhere you can stay until this story breaks and you're too public to kill quietly." Sarah's expression was fierce. "We're going to protect you. Both of you." Victor felt something tight in his chest loosen. For the first time since this began, they weren't alone. "What do you need from us?" he asked. "Full access to the drive. Written statements from both of you. Any additional evidence you can think of." Sarah was already typing on her laptop. "And Lina, I'll need you to walk me through the technical details. I need to understand exactly what this AI does and why it's so dangerous." Lina nodded. Thomas stood. "I'll make some calls. Get the safe house arranged." He looked at Victor. "How much liquid capital do you have access to immediately?" 5 million. Maybe more if I liquidate some assets. Good. We'll need it. Legal protection doesn't come cheap, and Arosam will try to tie us up in lawsuits. We need resources to fight back. Victor pulled out his phone. Consider it done. Over the next 2 hours, they worked. Sarah and Lina went through the drive file by file. Sarah asking questions, Lina providing context. Every detail documented. Every claim verified. Thomas made calls, to lawyers, to investigators, to people Victor didn't recognize but who clearly had the power to make things happen. Victor coordinated logistics. Money transfers. Security arrangements. Making sure Claire was safe at Stanford. Around 3 a.m., Sarah sat back and rubbed her eyes. Okay, she said. I have enough for the first article. The overview. Defense contractor accused of stealing teen prodigy's AI, murdering her father. When will it run? Victor asked. Tomorrow. Noon. ProPublica's front page. Sarah smiled grimly. And I've got contacts at the Times, the Post, and the Journal. They'll pick it up within hours. What about legal blowback? Lina asked nervously. That's where I come in, Thomas said, returning to the table. I've filed preemptive motions with 3 different courts. Anti-SLAPP provisions. First Amendment protections. By the time Arosam's lawyers figure out how to respond, the story will already be everywhere. Sarah looked at Victor and Lina. Last chance, she said seriously. Once I hit publish, there's no taking it back. Your lives change forever. You become the story. The scrutiny will be intense. The threats will be real. Are you sure you want to do this? Victor looked at Lina. She looked back at him. Then she reached across the table and took his hand. I'm sure, she said. So am I, Victor said. Sarah nodded. Then let's destroy them. The safe house turned out to be a cabin 2 hours north of the city. Isolated. Off-grid. Surrounded by forest. Thomas drove them himself in an unmarked car, taking back roads, checking constantly for tails. They arrived just as the sun was rising. The cabin was small but well equipped. Generator power. Stocked pantry. 2 bedrooms. A landline phone connected to an encrypted server. No one knows about this place except me, Thomas said. Not even Sarah. You'll be safe here. He handed Victor a folder. Emergency contacts. Legal documents. Everything you need if something goes wrong. When will we hear from Sarah? Lina asked. She'll call when the stories live. Noon, like she said. Thomas checked his watch. 6 hours from now. 6 hours. Victor felt exhaustion crashing over him. He hadn't slept in over 30 hours. Lina looked worse, swaying slightly on her feet. Get some rest, Thomas said gently. Both of you. You've done everything you can do. After Thomas left, Victor and Lina stood in the cabin's main room, uncertain. You should sleep, Victor said. So should you. Neither of them moved. Then Lina spoke, her voice barely a whisper. What if it doesn't work? What if no one cares? What if Arosam buries the story anyway? Victor walked to her, placing his hands on her shoulders. Then we try again. And again. And again. Until someone listens. Until the truth comes out. His voice was firm. I promise you, Lina. This doesn't end until they pay for what they did. Tears streamed down Lina's face. My father would have liked you, she said. Victor pulled her into a hug, this broken, brilliant girl who'd lost everything but somehow kept fighting. Get some sleep, he said softly. When you wake up, the world's going to know your name. At noon, Victor's encrypted phone rang. He and Lina had been sitting at the cabin's small kitchen table for 20 minutes, watching the clock. Victor answered on the first ring. It's live, Sarah said. Her voice was electric with energy. ProPublica's front page. And Victor, it's already trending. Twitter, Reddit, LinkedIn. The Times just called asking for comment. So did CNN. Victor felt his heart racing. And Arosam? No official response yet. But their stock dropped 8% in the first hour. Sarah laughed. They're panicking. Victor looked at Lina, whose eyes were wide with disbelief. People are listening, he told her. Lina's hands covered her mouth. Tears streamed down her face. Victor, I need to tell you something, Sarah continued, her voice more serious now. Senator Morrison's office called me 30 minutes ago. She wants to meet. She's convening an emergency hearing of the Intelligence Committee. Friday morning. She wants both of you to testify. We'll be there, Victor said immediately. It's going to be intense. Arosam's lawyers will try to tear you apart. Let them try. Sarah was quiet for a moment. You did a good thing, Victor. Both of you. Dr. Rhodes would be proud. The line went dead. Victor set down the phone and looked at Lina. She was crying openly now, not tears of despair, but of release. Of justice finally within reach. We did it, she whispered. We actually did it. Victor smiled. We did. For the first time in 6 months, Lina Rhodes allowed herself to hope. Not the dangerous, fragile hope from before. But real hope. The kind that comes from knowing you're not alone anymore. That someone believed you. That the truth was finally coming to light. Outside the cabin, the forest was peaceful. Birds sang. Sun filtered through the trees. Inside, two people who'd been strangers 48 hours ago sat together in silence. Planning their testimony. Preparing for war. Ready to bring down an empire. 3 days later. The Senate Intelligence Committee hearing room was packed. Cameras. Reporters. Protesters outside demanding justice. Victor and Lina sat at a long table, facing rows of senators. Behind them, Sarah Chen and Thomas Whitaker. An army of lawyers. Evidence binders stacked 6 feet high. Senator Morrison gavelled the hearing to order. Ms. Rhodes, she said, looking directly at Lina. You've made very serious allegations. I'm going to ask you to tell this committee, in your own words, what happened to you and your father. Lina took a deep breath. She looked at Victor, who nodded encouragingly. Then she began to speak. And as she told her story, of genius stolen, of murder covered up, of 6 months surviving on the streets while the people who destroyed her life collected bonuses, the room went silent. Senators leaned forward. Cameras captured every word. The American people listened. And in a boardroom across the city, Arosam Industries executives realized something terrifying. They'd lost. Sometimes the truth needs a champion. Sometimes justice needs a voice. If Lina's story moved you, if you believe that brilliant minds deserve protection and corruption deserves exposure, then help me share this message with others who need to hear it. Hit that like button if you stood with Lina and Victor through every twist and turn. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, stories about courage, justice, and fighting back against impossible odds. And share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that one person with the truth can bring down an empire. That genius can't be erased. That justice, though delayed, can still arrive. Because somewhere out there might be another Lina Rhodes, brilliant, invisible, waiting for someone to believe them. Let's make sure they're not waiting alone. Thanks for watching. And remember, the truth always finds a way.